Hey everybody, welcome back to the... No, wait a minute. We're not in the studio today. We are in beautiful Cayucos, California, and we're doing a little plein air painting. Okay, so let me get you set up here. I've got my paints, which are a mix of grams that I have put together myself. You can see a video that will show you me setting that up. I've got some paint brushes here. They are a set of Winsor Newton Cottman brushes I brought in a pack off of Amazon, and the one brown brush I have in my hand right now is a Princeton Neptune brush. It's a little bigger than the others, and I'm going to use it for just putting in large areas of paint. In the corner you can see exactly what I'm looking at today. Here I am sitting on the beach looking at the beautiful Pacific Ocean, and I thought I would paint just a little picture facing north, looking up the beach on this bright, sunny, very windy autumn morning. I should also tell you that I am using my Strathmore visual journal, 140-pound watercolor paper. This is the first time I have taken this out. I do use a lot of the Strathmore 400-pound watercolor paper. I find it's pretty good. Actually, I find it's really good. I enjoy it. It takes a beating. It soaks up water. It's very resilient. You can rub and really scratch on it, and it takes a beating. Very nice paper. Very nice. And this just happened to come in a nice big, I don't know what it is, 9 by 12 inch book with, I think, 24 sheets in it. So as I go out and about painting some plein air paintings, I think you're going to see me dragging this along with me. I do have the camera set up just over my shoulder. You can see it's fairly sunny, and I have to look over my shoulder to actually convince myself not only that the camera is working this morning, but that what you're going to be able to look at is something you're going to want to be able to see. The painting itself notwithstanding. Okay, so let me shoo a few flies away, and I'm just dipping in and putting in some basic color. It's fall here in California. It's late fall here in California, so we don't have a lot of green. What little green we do have comes at the very tops of some grasses, on the tops of a few hills, and maybe on the rocks that are here. So I'm just going to quickly, what I'm going to do is drop in a few different colors here. I could run through all of the colors that are in this palette. If I notice I'm picking one out or something, I will let you know. The sky in here is a cerulean blue. I do know that. And the basis for the ground is a transparent iron oxide and a transparent orange iron oxide. My water is a mix of ultramarine, phthalo blue, and a little bit of burnt umber till I get the right color. Trying to put it on a little bit thinner at the horizon line, which is just above the point of the rocks that come out there, and making it a bit darker, more intense as I work towards, of course, myself and to the shoreline. I am trying to work fairly quickly out here. I've got two things working against me that I didn't plan on, and maybe I should have when I came out here to paint this morning. The first is that as I look to my left, I can see that the tide is slowly moving towards me, and I hadn't taken that into account when I put my seat down where I was. And the other thing that is working against me is that this is a fairly windy day. I had to park my car, I don't know, 400, maybe 500 yards away from where I'm sitting, and up on a little bit of a bluff and walk down to where I'm at now. and I bet the wind was blowing at a good 25 to 30 miles an hour as I walked down to this location. I was not sure I'd be able to paint here, but I found a little hidey hole back here where this little beach is at. I thought it would make a great place for a painting, so decided to trudge through and push through. I hope you guys enjoy this. Okay, a little bit of ochre, a little bit of sap green, just defining the hillside here, the closest hillside to me. There's a little bit of a more distant hill you can see back in the back. Looking up at the camera, yes, you guys are still there behind me. And this hillside, this hillock, is a little bit closer than the one behind it, so I want my colors to be just a little bit more intense, just putting them on with a little bit more, just a little bit more color there, not quite as runny, and pulling that right on down. The white that you see on the bottom right-hand side of the page is the beach as it stretches out in front of me. There's a small creek that I can't quite see, just on the other side of the beach. It dips down before that hill on the other side rises back up. Okay, so I'm still continuing to paint the rocks as they go out. I haven't done any real detail yet. I'm just blocking in a bunch of color for us. And for those of you who don't like the video sped up, I'm sorry. I had to speed this up a little bit to make it fit in about the time frame that I thought it needed to be. I hope it's not too distracting. You can still see everything I'm doing. Okay, what I'm painting now are cracks and crevices in the rocks. The grasses on top of the hill have stopped, and down below are some sandy, rocky shores, just the dirt coming down the hillside. And I'm trying to draw a few lines in there and just let them blend in. A hard edge on one side, a soft edge on the other side, so it looks like it's cracks stacked up a little bit. You'll see that later on in the painting. Looking up to check to see if the camera's still working. There we go. And just continuing to do that right along the hillside. There we go. Nothing to it. What I'm doing is just charging my paintbrush with a little bit of paint, drawing down where I want that difference in the rocks to be, that crack in the rocks to be, and then wetting the paint on one side and letting the color draw out. It's making some nice lines and some nice definition in there. We're going to need to come back and make those bigger or add more to it. Later on, we'll see that, but I'm going to keep going with this. I've got a little bit of cobalt blue that I'm working with and a little Payne's gray, maybe just a touch of burnt umber. This rock in the front that I'm currently painting is a different color than all of the other ones. I thought that was pretty interesting. And so that's why it has a slightly different color than all the rest. I'll show you what I'm looking at one more time, or you can go back to the beginning, but don't do that. Stay with me here, and you'll be able to see that rock really is a different color as we get into this. There we go. And it's just at this point, it's a little bit of repetition, trying to make these cracks and crevices in the hillside. Just moving on. At this point, I'm obviously doing a voiceover on the video, and I'm looking back, and I notice it's nice to see that I am not going bald quite yet. I don't know that you're getting a lot out of seeing the top of my head, but it's nice for me to see that to still have a full head of hair. Okay, so I'm getting things a little bit darker down at the water line where the tide comes in and goes out, and the rocks are covered by water for half of the day. They are quite a bit darker than the rocks the rest of the way up the hillside. So I'm just darkening those up a little bit, and then extending some crack lines from that dark on up. Maybe the water has seeped up there a little bit. Maybe they've made the water has made a bit of a larger crevice, and therefore the shadow in there would be a little bit darker. So I'm going to try to show that. There we go. Looking up, just taking a reference. I'm not trying to duplicate the hillside, taking my reference from the hillside. And there we go. I should say, I haven't said so yet, I do have a tub of water down to my right hand side. When you see me move my hand down to the right, that's what I'm doing, is getting my brush wet. And you can see clearly a couple of flies coming onto my paper. There's a bunch of seaweed that has drifted up on the seashore. Trying to say that a few times fast is difficult. There's some seaweed here, and that seaweed always seems to attract some kind of little fly or creature. And they keep landing on me and buzzing around me. I didn't really anticipate those either, but those are easy to deal with. We'll just flick them away and keep right on going. There we go. Now you can really see that hillside starting to take shape. Just painting around those few rocks. There are quite a few rocks in front of that far hillside. I have simplified my painting a little bit and only left maybe a half a dozen or so rocks instead of painting the 100 or so that were there. If I were to be sitting here all day painting this, I'd probably put in quite a few more than I currently see, but I think just those few that are there are plenty for my little plein air painting. All right, I'm darkening up my water just a little bit. It's getting a little bit closer to me, and I want it to be a little bit closer in the foreground. I've got to be careful a little bit as it comes down the beach. I don't want the water closest to the beach to be very dark because it's very thin. So I'm going to try to parallel the beach line there, but I do want about where the rocks start to come into play. I want that to be quite a bit darker. So I'm just going to darken that water up. All right, here we go. Continuing on, darkening my water, darkening my water line, putting just a few indications of water lines on those few rocks that I do have painted in the water. There we go. I am just painting my water fairly flat right now. There we go. Just a moment of reflection on what I've got so far. But what I was saying is I'm painting my water fairly flat right now. I know that I'm going to need to go back over this with something else. I'm going to need a white pencil. I'm going to need some titanium white opaque, something to help bring those waves to life a little bit. I just can't have a flat sheet of water. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. We're going to come back and do that. Right now I'm going to paint in the beach that's in front of me. Now it's even closer to me than that rock wall. It's closer than the water, so it needs to be correspondingly just a bit more intense, a little bit more color. There we go. Just put that in there. And I don't want to over smooth this. I want some craggles and crackles and just overall organic colors and shapes. I'm just dabbling that paint on there. It's going to do what it needs to do on the paper. In fact, I've got a plan to make this look more like a rocky, little bit of a coastline in just a second, but just want to get that color on there at the moment. On my big gray rock right in the middle here, I'm going to put some lines on that. We're going to try and give that a bit of life and a little bit of shadow also. Okay. Now I'm just coming back. I'm continuing to go back and refine that coastline. Make as many of these crevices in that wall as I can. Extending the ones I have, darkening the ones I already have, making that look like it's in a live area over there on that side. I think that's pretty good. And I'm going to need to do a little bit of darkening on this because the water line, I think maybe isn't quite as dark as it needs to be. We'll see how that goes. But you can see building up layer upon layer. It's getting better and better and better. All right, using a little maroon perylene there, and a little bit of Payne's Gray, a little bit of phthalo blue to darken it. Here we go, just continuing to put those in, going over top of the areas where I think they need to be darker, making a new area or two here and there where I think I need to add some darkness. And there we go, really darkening up that water line. And working a lot right in the center of this painting. Here we go. And I'm purposely trying to work in some reds and some blues and a few little greens in there because I don't want the rocks to be just brown. I want there to be a variation. So if I can mix those colors and get a little bit of variation in there, I think so much the better. It's going to make it a bit more of an interesting painting to look at rather than just have brown on brown or brown on ochre or something like that. So however we can mix those colors in, I think is going to help out. And there we go, still continuing to work on that water line. It's getting a bit darker now. It's looking a little bit better. And I think now, whoa, there's the wind. I think now I'm going to start to think about my beach in the front, my rocky beach. And what I need to do, I'm thinking of trying to do a little bit of splatter on there to make this look as though there are a number of rocks, and I'm trying to figure out how to do this on my lap. I will admit, my paintbrush was not helping me. My holding of my paper was not helping me. Everything was going a little bit wrong here. I probably also didn't have the right thickness of paint. I'm trying to figure that out. And of course, when you don't have things going right, I've got a little bit of splatter that's not working for me. Let me see how much I can get in here. Well, there we go. I'm getting a little bit. I'll change those colors up. You can see the pebbles down below the painting. There's a lot of different colors in there. I want to try to represent a lot of different colors in here to get some splatter. But really, it's not working like I want to. I think I'm going to resort to... what I'm going to resort to is trying to get a few splatters off here and there. Actually, I probably shouldn't worry about that so much. But I can't help it a little bit. What I need to do is try to get it on there. I'm just going to drop some on with my brush. There we go. Something like that. And that's going to have to be good enough for what I'm doing. Let me just take a look. Oh, and I think that's about it for me today. That's not so bad. You're still hanging in there. I'm still hanging in there. Let me show you what it is that I'm working on. You should know I am a little flustered. I didn't know exactly how to do this. Here's my white pen. I'm going to try to fix my not my shoreline. I'm trying to fix my waves. My pen isn't working. I lick it. That's not working for me. I'll have to take it back to the studio and fix it later. There we go. But that's the drawing that I've got. Let me move you around. You can see what I'm looking at. Today, there are all my supplies, and there's my shoreline. I hope you had fun with me today. I had fun painting with you, plein air in the outside. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.